Hey everybody, so I decided to do something different today, and I'm going to read this book that I found at a thrift store, and it's titled Follow Your Dream. Writings about ideals, confidence, enthusiasm, courage, and perseverance, and other guideposts to happiness. So here we go. So this is by, let's see, Tina Hacker. Okay, so the first one is The Surest Guides. Ideals are like stars. You will not succeed in touching them with your hands, but like the seafaring man on the desert of waters, you choose them as your guides, and following them, you reach your destiny. Author unknown. A Better Life. All human recorded history is about 5,000 years old. How many, again, this was written in the 70s, so we're at 6,000. How many people in all that time have made an overwhelming difference? 20? 30? Most of us spend our lives trying to achieve some things, but we're not going to make an overwhelming difference. We can do the best we can. That's enough. The problem with history is that it's written by college professors about great men. That's not what history is. History's a lot of little people getting together and deciding they want a better life for themselves and their kids. Bill Talcott. How to find adventure. Jacqueline Cochran's life has certainly been an exciting one. Besides being a prosperous businesswoman, she was the first woman to fly a jet faster than the speed of sound and the first woman to make a blind landing. Her formula for success: ambition and honesty blended with faith. I have found that it is easy to reach for the moon as it is to reach for the top of the fence that hems you in, if one mixes ambition and imagination. Of course, the mixture must contain a base of honesty, and the whole must be blended with faith. I became the first woman to pass the sonic barrier and to exceed the speed of sound. That meant a climb to an altitude of nearly 50,000 feet. Up there, even by day, the sky is dark blue, and the stars can be seen. Earthbound friends are left behind. Flying through the sound barrier is like flying inside an explosion. In the dive, the plane creates a shock wave, and when it pulls out of the dive, the shock wave speeds straight down towards Earth and strikes the Earth with 2 whip-crack explosions. In my first dive, these explosions were heard on the flight line, but were not recorded in the observation tower. I was heartsick. That same day, however, I went back up again and repeated the dive so they could be recorded properly. 2 weeks later, I did it again. I have found adventure in flying, in world travel, in business, and even close at hand. There can be adventure in such a simple pastime as my helping the wild quail on our ranch lose their fear and come trustfully close to me. Adventure is a state of mind and spirit. It comes through faith, for with complete faith, there is no fear of what faces one in life or death. There's always more beauty to be discovered. Always better. Eve Queller, pianist and conductor, shares her views about the value of music. But indeed, this philosophy can be applied to any endeavor a person believes in. There's always something new to be found in the music. There's always more beauty to be discovered. There's no time when you can say, well, this is it. You can't recreate a performance. The next one will be different. That one is over, but the next one will always be better. It must be. Life's little tests. We don't need the courage to face life's big tests. What we need is courage to meet life's little tests. What we need is the courage to follow a regular routine. the courage to stick to our plans, the courage to keep the petty irritations of the day from blocking our efforts, the courage to keep on going hour after hour. We need to remember that it isn't the big trees that trip us up as we walk through the forest, but the vines on the ground, the exposed roots, the low underbrush. Clay Hamlin. That was pretty powerful. Okay. The neglected art of being different. One of the most vivid and painful recollections of my life concerns a hat. When I was 11, my parents sent me to a summer camp run along semi-military lines. Part of each camper's uniform was supposed to be a Boy Scout hat, low-crowned, wide-brimmed, to be worn every afternoon without fail when we lined up for formal inspection. But my parents did not approve me with a scout hat. Through some catastrophic oversight, they sent me off with one of those Army campaign hats, vintage of 1917. It was wide-brimmed, all right. When I put it on, I was practically in total darkness. Whenever I wore this hat, instead of being an inconspicuous and somewhat homesick small boy, I became a freak. Or so I thought. Looking back now, across the years, I could smile at the memory of my wan little face peering out forlornly from under that monstrosity of a hat. But it was no joke at the time. I was miserable, utterly, abjectly miserable. Why? Because I was different. Different from the others, different from the crowd. The fear of being different, like most fears, tends to diminish when you drag it into the light and take a good look at it. At the bottom of such fear lies an intense preoccupation with self. That comical hat, back in my childhood, might have caused some momentary merriment or temporary teasing, but the whole thing was too trivial to have lasted long. I was the one who kept it alive by agonizing about it. Wow, what a powerful statement. I was the one who kept it alive by agonizing about it. It takes courage to be different, but there is also an art to it. The art of not antagonizing people unnecessarily by your differentness. People don't object to differentness nearly so much as they object to the attitude of superiority that so often goes with it. The rule of thumb is very simple. Be as different as you like, but try to be tolerant of the people who differ from you. If we all granted to one another the right simply to be ourselves, we would be different enough. When he was 8 years old, someone asked Henry Thoreau what he was going to be when he grew up. "Why," said the boy, "I will be I." He was, too. And that was by Arthur Gordon. On that note about, be as different as you like and be tolerant of the people who differ from you, it's like, on one hand, I can listen to that and say, okay, we live in a country where you can claim your own religion, you can dress however you like, you can, identify yourself in a very large variety of ways. I don't agree with it. I don't like it because it's far from biblical structure. And so, yes, be tolerant of people who differ from you. Like, if you want to have like green hair and claim that you're a parakeet and say that you're not a woman and you're not a man, but you're a parakeet and you have green hair and you're trying to emulate the colors of a parakeet, and you want to go into a women's bathroom, but you're really a man, like, I'm holding that you're probably mentally ill, like you don't really have your head on straight, because when you're a man trying to go into a women's bathroom, like, that's just not cool. And you are either a male or a female. You're not anything else. Those are the two options, really. And so again, try to be tolerant of people who differ from you. I can be tolerant in a public space in terms of locally, if I walk into a store and somebody has green hair and they're claiming themselves a parakeet in the middle of Target, like, I'm just going to walk on by. Like, I'm not even going to engage to the best of my ability. I'm just going to walk away. But if I end up standing in line and then that person is standing behind me and they start to try to have a dialogue with me, I don't know exactly what I'm going to say. Like, I'm going to let the Holy Spirit give me those words in that moment, because honestly, I don't even want to engage with this person. I think that they're crazy and I really don't want to engage with that person. But they can continue to simply be themselves. But that doesn't mean that I want to create a community with someone who doesn't understand the difference between male and female and claims themselves a parakeet. So I'm going to be more with Thoreau when he says, I will be I. Like, but that's a God statement. I am that I am. That's the same version of I am that I am that God said. And when you know who God is, then I think that you have a better understanding of who you are through God's eyes, that you're a daughter or a son, and that you will receive his blessings. But that idea of like just, allowing whatever to be whatever, like, I don't agree with that either, because then you can have total chaos and mayhem, because people that are not clearly in their right mind are trying to rule other people who are in their right mind, so that people that are in their right mind will call other people that are not in their right mind a label that isn't even true. So there is that. Dream your dreams, then blueprint your dreams, and finally contract with yourself to construct them stone by stone. But while you are dreaming, dream big. Guilford Dudley Jr. Now, dreaming, I am all about the dreaming. And, the fact that you have to construct them, you have to design them in your mind, you have to construct them with your hands. And when you're dreaming, you might as well dream big, because you can have what you want. And the tangible part of putting it together, that is part of, quote, living the dream, right? Okay, playwright and author Robert E. Lee offers some words of wisdom for the aspiring writer. But his advice is really universal and can be applied to almost any career, any goal. Here, Mr. Lee tells why he thinks everything is easy. When the old rabbi of Minsk was dying, thousands of people lined up outside his house to learn what would be the last words of this great and wise man. The doctor leaned over the bed and asked, "Rabbi, is there one last word of wisdom that you want to give the people of Minsk?" The old man nodded, and very weakly he said, "Life is an empty rain barrel." Rapidly, the word sent down the line to the people outside, and the rabbi says, "Life is an empty rain barrel." A little man at the end of the line heard this, and he said, "Wait a minute, what does he mean, life is an empty rain barrel?" So the word started to go back along the line, "What does he mean, life is an empty rain barrel?" Finally, the doctor leaned over the bed again and said, "Rabbi, we're sorry to bother you while you're dying, but what do you mean, life is an empty rain barrel?" Long pause. Then the rabbi said, "So, life is not an empty rain barrel." There are two morals to this story. In most wisdom, the reverse is also true. You have been taught that writing is hard. I tell you that writing is so hard that you will probably never write anything unless you think of it as easy. Secondly, I think the old rabbi was right the first time. I don't mean to drench you with hydraulic metaphors, but for a writer, life is an empty rain barrel. Because you can't catch any rain in a full rain barrel. It is a permeating principle in Hindu theology that a man must empty himself before he can fill himself. Writing, art, the entire creative process is something which comes from somewhere outside of the person of the artist. You are a vessel, as Paul says, an earthen vessel, a fragile vehicle through which a precious essence is poured. And if you resist, tense up, worry, doubt, fear, and crush your script with apprehension over the difficulty of what you're trying to do, you constrict the flow and nothing happens. You can't water the roses if you're standing on the hose. If you turn military, become a slave of regulations and rules, bark orders at yourself, I doubt if you'll win any battles. Open up, relax, have faith in your strength and your source. Let it come, let it flow through you. Empty yourself so you can be inspired anew. Who knows, you may discover that the lie I've been telling you is really true, that everything is easy. So on this portion, I want to highlight one of the lines in here, and it says that it's a permeating principle of Hindu theology that a man must empty himself before he can fill himself. And being that, you know, in the yoga world, and I studied in the yoga world, this idea that you have to empty yourself before you can fill yourself. And at the time, I really did not understand those like theology things that were spoken, nor did the teachers of the physical asana practice really go into any depth about any of it. It was more like, read this book, Rumi, read the, you know, Yogananda, the thing of the yogi, whatever, as part of the structure of the certification for being a yoga teacher. But this idea that man must empty himself before he can fill himself, and truly Jesus was saying the same thing. He was saying that he does nothing except through the Father. So Jesus was not acting on his own, you know, waking up and saying, hey, you know, today I feel like doing this. No, he was praying. He was being obedient to the Father. He had a direct relationship with God the Father. And if God said, I want you to focus on this, and that was part of their communication, then he obeyed what he was being asked to do and called to do. And he did it. Jesus was not selfishly filling himself up with what he wanted. He was emptying himself and filling himself up with what the Father wanted for him. So I think that's a interesting distinction. And then the other second paragraph says that, you know, you are a vessel, as Paul says, and he's talking about biblical Paul, an earthen vessel, a fragile vehicle through which a precious essence is poured. And again, let's think about it. Paul was Saul first, and as Saul, he was condemning the Christians. He was killing them. He was a rabbi killing Christians. But when he had and saw the light of the angel of the Lord, Yeshua in the flesh, come to him and say, why are you killing my people? You know, then Saul was changed to Paul, and then Paul became a proclaimer of the Lord and for the Christians. And his essence, meaning Jesus's essence, the essence of the Father through Jesus, the essence of Jesus, Yeshua, through the Holy Spirit, through the Ruach HaKodesh, is poured into the believers who believe on the cross, the burial, the death, the burial, the resurrection. And then it's poured out on other people that want to see the light. And it is true that when you're all about yourself and you're in your ego and you're trying to figure it out yourself and you're trying to, you know, make things happen in the flesh, then you're going to experience the flow constricting, and nothing's going to happen. But you can't water the roses if you're standing on the hose. You know, I could say the same thing about detoxing. When you have your red enema bag and, you know, you're holding up the red enema bag with one hand, you've got the other hand sticking it up your butt so that the water is going through the hose. It's from up here and it's traveling down into the hose, and your intestines are being filled up with water. And when you just let it happen, like you allow for it to happen, like you're going to know the right moment, you know, to pull out the hose, and, you know, the detox is going to come out. The parasites are going to come out, and you're going to see them, and they're going to be visible, and you're going to be like, oh my gosh, that was in me. Like, now it's out of me. But if you're like all worried and, you know, you're not paying attention, and, you know, you're holding the enema bag, but you're like clamping with your other hand on the hose, and you're wondering why no water is getting into your butt and into your intestines, it's because your hand is clamping the hose. You've got to be, you know, you got to have hands off. You've got to literally be in a state like, you know, like the Aaron, you know, like the hands of Aaron, like you're praising God, Adonai, you're praising Jehovah, and you're in a state of like, Lord, I'm doing this cleanse right now. I you know, your will be done, you know, and I'm holding the bag, the thing is in my butt, I'm praying in the spirit, and boom, the stuff comes out. So, you know, empty yourself. You know, when you're filled up with your own crap and your own desires and excess, you know, when you're overweight, you need to empty yourself so that you can be inspired anew. And guess what? When you get all that junk out of your colon that's been holding you back, and you go through several different pant sizes, and, you know, you go from like being a 3X, a 2X, a 1X, an extra large, a large, you're a medium and a small, and you're back to being a medium and a small after being a 3X. I mean, that's a huge, huge jump from all those clothes sizes. And it's from detoxing. It's from, you know, hands up to the Father. Father, you know best. Like, you know, you show me what health is. You detox me. You show me what I need to do. And I'm going to be obedient. I'm going to listen. And I'm being emptied. And it says, you may discover that the lie I've been telling you is really true, that everything is easy. When we take our hands off and we let God lead, and we listen to the Comforter, the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, leading us in that moment, because we believe on Jesus, and that Holy Spirit we have a personal relationship with, then we're going to hear that call that says, you know, hey, go buy this product. This product is going to work for you. And we're going to be like, okay, let me order that product right now. Like, there's a reason why we're led to certain people, places, and things. You know, and who would have thought, I'm going to get the bottle, like, who would have thought that, that, you know, this little bottle can make such a difference. I mean, you know, I open it up, and it's called the Purge formula, and it has wormwood, black walnut, and cloves in it. Okay. And so I get the dropper full like this. I take the dropper full, and it clears the stuff out. I mean, how simple is that? Is that hard? No, it's pretty easy. You know, when I'm holding the red enema bag and I've got, you know, the hose in my butt and it's filling up with water, it's cleansing out my colon and my intestines. And then all of a sudden it comes out. Like, I don't have to strain. I'm not sitting on the toilet, like grunting. You know, like, there is none of that. It's easy. Just, you're holding the enema bag, it's coming out. If you do a colonic, that's even easier. But you got to have the cash to do a professional colonic. And in today's world, they're pretty expensive. But you can do the red enema bag at home, and it's so easy. And once that stuff is cleared out and you are emptied of the things that were tormenting you, and, you know, and your stomach is flatter, and your pants are loose, and you have to go buy a new wardrobe and new clothes because your clothes don't fit, like, there's beauty in that, you know? Like, everything is easy. And yes, that can be applied to writing as well, that when we're in our head and, you know, we're like, I don't know what I should do, I don't know what, just get out of your head and just start journaling and let it flow. Okay, something of our own. Lola Redford, co-founder of CAN, Consumer Action Now, talks about the importance of relying on one's own self and having one's own identity. For her, as for most people, this is the feat that is never simple. Although I don't get paid working with CAN, whatever we make on lectures goes back into the organization. I do like the idea of earning my own money. When I think of the book we're doing, I think how nice it would be if we made money on it and each of the women could have some money of her own. There's a sense of pride in earning your own way. It's been a long time since I've done that, although it's not necessary for the upkeep of my household. There's something freeing psychologically about it. You know that if anything happens, you can take care of yourself. Having my own life has made it easier for my husband. He's relieved of the responsibility of having to create an ego for me. He knows that the things I'm doing are making me very happy, and I don't have to rely on the things he will bring me. We should all have something of our own. We should have something of our own because we're all here alone. You really have to go through the traumas of life by yourself. No one, even when you're married and have children, is going to help you when it gets down to that final crunch. No one can. It's what you're made of that's going to make whatever experience you run into either a positive experience for you or something that takes you down. To be able to rely on oneself in all sorts of circumstances and to put yourself in a position where you can test things out are both very good and positive. So let me highlight some of the points in this sharing. And again, I'm reading this for the first time. Like I picked up this book off a shelf. I'm reading it for literally the first time right now on camera. So I'm going to say that as a woman who grew up in a family where my father appeared, and I use that word and I'm choosing it carefully, my father appeared to be a good earthly father. He appeared to have a job. He appeared to take care of the family. And for many, many years, I thought that's what was happening. I thought, I really looked up to my dad, and I really saw him as, I want to be like my dad. He's so smart. He's a great speaker. He's a great writer. Like, I looked to the positive things that I saw my dad emulate. But the reality is, without my mother, nothing in my experience would have worked without my mom. She was the glue that held everything together. She was the hard worker. She was the one she was preparing the food, making the food from scratch. She was making our clothes, sewing our clothes. She was showing up at all of the school activities and events as, the mother, the face to our family. She was, having her own independent job, independent from my dad's, quote, earning. And my mom was a saver. She saved money and bagged lunches and, made things stretch. And my dad was the total opposite. He didn't want to bring the bag lunch. He wanted to eat out all the time, every single day. He was a talker, but not necessarily a doer. He lost many jobs along the years due to his alcoholism and due to his not wanting to follow orders and not being a very good worker, and probably in many cases. And there were many times that our family was under stress because my dad lost his job again. And, a lot of that was hidden. It was hidden. And, you really have to go through the traumas of life by yourself. And that's true. And what I saw happening within the family, when I was encouraged, hey, you might want to, find a hobby, and let's, so then it's I'm learning skills to go to 4-H, and I'm selling as a child. I started selling as an entrepreneur as a child in 4-H, going to farmers markets, selling my mom's baked goods, selling my macrame and pottery that I made, in our neighborhood with the lady up the street that had a pottery business. So what I'm saying is, as a very young age, I was being taught how to be self-sufficient and how to earn my own income. But as I earned my own income and put my money in a piggy bank, because that's what we were taught to do. You have a physical piggy bank that you put your cash into. And my dad would find that piggy bank and shake the change, and he would take it out and put a note in there and says, "Daddy needed a loan." And hundreds of dollars that I had saved from all of those chores and little bake sales and whatever I did, art pieces, I charged people to draw for them, whatever. And all that money was gone like that. So on one hand, I can say, well, I learned to do things on my own by emulating what my mom was teaching me. And all the while, my dad was taking the position that he was such a good provider, when in reality he wasn't. And then I think to all the bad choices of men and the relationships that I've been through, and many of them were the same type of personality as my dad. They were alcoholics, they were talkers and not doers. They were drug addicts, talkers and not doers. And, and when it gets down to that final crunch, it's what you're made of that's going to make whatever experience you run into either a positive experience for you or something that takes you down. And again, I look to my last major, relationship, which was in 2018 until 2021. And I was engaged, and I really thought that I had met my match, and who he presented himself to be really appeared as though I was going to have somebody that was taking care of me, and that I could actually drop my shoulders and not have to be so self-sufficient. And that was not the case. And in fact, he created more drama, more trauma, more harm, and the whole drug addiction cycles of what I witnessed, and then him finally dying. It was a very traumatic experience. And then in my grieving, to find out that all the things that I had saved before I even met him, before he even came into my life, all those resources were gone. So I guess what I'm trying to bring to this portion is that the world teaches us that we need to rely on ourselves. The world teaches us that, you need to do something, get a degree, get a job, start a business. You need to be self-sufficient. And the world teaches us that that is the way. But that's not what God teaches. What God teaches is, make me number one, seek first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Matthew 6:33. The Lord is saying, make me first, make my word first, his Bible, understand what he's saying, so that you will have the discernment to understand that when you read things, whatever things you read, that you're like reading it with the wisdom and understanding through the lens of the Father's word, and that meaning the Bible. So I could say, yes, as a worldly person, do you need to take care of yourself and put things in order? Yes. Everybody's going to come to that awareness at some point. I need to go get a job. I need to, make some money. I need to save some money. I need to be proactive about these things. And some of that is true and some of it's biblical. But the main thing is that when we put God first, then truly he can be our Father. He can bless us. And then when things come to us, we know that it's coming through the Father, because he ordained it, he orchestrated it, and he made those people, places, and things come into a portion where someone is blessing us. They are giving us something. And it's not that we're getting it from our own efforts necessarily. Many times it can be through another person. But again, testing things out. God is going to put us through tests. Are we his? Are we his daughter? Are we his son? Are we paying attention to the Bible? Are we saving our money the way that God says to save it? Are we putting money aside for the feasts, the divine appointments? Are we doing things? Are we honoring his feasts? Like today is Shabbat. Are we doing things and putting things in place so that we can be prepared for Shabbat? Okay, so now I'm going to read this. Nothing boring in life. Nadia Boulanger, internationally known musician, scholar, and teacher, talks about work and her view that all kinds of work can be worthwhile and interesting if we have the right attitude. There's nothing boring in life except ourselves. The most humble work does not have to be boring. I remember the old woman who cleaned the floor in my place in Garganville. She died years ago. Every day I think of her with the most profound respect and with the greatest reverence. She was 80 years old. One day she knocked at my door and said, "Mademoiselle, I know you don't like to be disturbed, but the floor, come and see it. It shines in such a way." Now, I always think of her. In my mind, Stravinsky and Madame Duval will appear before the Lord for the same reason. Each has done what he does with all his consciousness. When I say to Madame Duval, "You, Madame Duval, when you die, you will appear to the Lord as equal to Mr. Stravinsky, and for the same reasons," she did not know exactly what I meant. She could not understand. But when I said the same thing to Stravinsky, who knew her, he said, "How you flatter me. For when I do something, I have something to gain. I have something, but she has only the work to be well done." And wow, what a great, portion here for this reading. Again, when my fiance died, I did not have the strength to continue with doing my life coaching or health coaching or fitness coaching. I just wanted to crawl into a hole and die. Like, I just was overwhelmed with sadness and grief, and I couldn't speak or talk the way that I normally would come out with joy. I didn't have joy. And it was a rough season, and I started a cleaning business. And I don't even like cleaning, but it was something, there was an app, and I could sign up, and I could choose selectively which houses or which zip codes I wanted to do. And it was like cash in, cash out. Like within a couple hours or a couple days, I would get the money in my account. And it was like I walked in with my cleaning supplies, and I'd just be like, "You said you wanted this and this done." And I'd go over that with the customer, and I'd tell them what I could do in that time period. Like if I was contracted for 3 hours, then I tell them what was reasonably feasible in those 3 hours. And then I tell them what was not possible. And again, this is given the circumstances of each household, the amount of hoarding and clutter and dirt and grime. And a lot of times people would hire a cleaner right before the holidays, and they were just basically, in many ways, they were being abusive to cleaners. I mean, the kind of stacked up grime that they would have ready for you was really obnoxious. But the point is, you came in and you were humbling yourself. I mean, just the act of doing cleaning is a humbling act. And you're cleaning people's toilets, you're cleaning people's kitchens, and they're disgusting. And so I would listen to scripture, and I would either have headphones on, or I'd play it through my iPhone, and I'd be listening and worshiping God while I'm cleaning a toilet. And there's something about what happened to me and what transformed me. I'm not going to say that I enjoy washing toilets. I really don't. But something happened to me that I was able to do it, and I was able to complete it, and I was able to get paid. And even though it's something I really don't enjoy, like, I felt a sense of accomplishment at the end of those days. And believe me, it was grueling labor. It was labor intensive. But I did get out of that business when I got some spunk or funk or something in my eye from cleaning somebody's bathroom. And from then on, I was like, you know what, this is not for me. So, okay, knowledge. Knowledge is power. Rather, knowledge is happiness, because to have knowledge, broad, deep knowledge, is to know true ends from false, and lofty things from low. To know the things and deeds that have marked man's progress is to feel the great heartthrobs of humanity through the centuries. And if one does not feel in those pulsations a heavenward striving, one must indeed be deaf to the harmonies of life. And that's by Helen Keller. What a powerful statement there. It is through our trauma, it is through adversity, it is through heartbreak that we can see the difference between what is true and what is false. And when you're reading the Bible and you're reading through the filter of God's eyes, you can discern the difference between this person is wicked and this person is righteous. This person really speaks the truth, and this person is a liar, right? If you're not feeling heaven on earth, then you're disconnected from heaven, and you're holding on to something that maybe you shouldn't be holding on to. And given the season of fall and letting go, like, let go of things that you don't need to hold on to anymore. When I speak now about the seasons that I've already gone through, like, I'm on the other side of it now talking to you about it. But in the time when I was in the midst of those throes and traumas, I couldn't even really talk about it. I mean, like, I did, but I was more in a complaining state because I didn't even understand it. I was in it when I was in it. And now, years later, it's like I have a different, perception, because my filter is through God's eyes now. And I'm seeing heaven here and earth here. And it's like God's bringing heaven to earth. And if I'm not feeling heaven on earth, then something's wrong with me and my focus. And today I can say, yes, I feel heaven on earth. Before, I was still in, the grief and sadness and actually bringing hell on earth because of where I was in my head. So it makes more sense to be in God's alignment, bringing heaven to earth. Okay. The greatest championship. There are 4 things that I feel are important factors in determining a winning attitude. First of all, in our dreams, and as we climb the ladder to those dreams, each rung in that ladder has a very definite meaning. The first rung is your determination to your dream. The next rung is your dedication to your dream. The third rung is the ladder, is the self-discipline that you must display and the sacrifice that goes with it. The fourth rung in the ladder is the kind of attitude that you assume in reaching your dream. We all strive for the top rung of the ladder, and that's the thing that is called championship. Championship is the ultimate for all of us, but we must remember that championships are very symbolic. Now, what is important on the road to that championship? To me, we must learn to spell the word respect. We must respect the rights and properties of our fellow man, and then learn to play the game of life, as well as the game of athletics, according to the rules of our society. If you can take that and put it into practice in the community in which you live, then to me, you have won the greatest championship that any person can ever win, because these are the things that will never gather dust, and these are the things that will never become tarnished, and these are the things that will live with you as long as you live on the face of God's earth. Jesse Owens. Again, beautiful, powerful, and I love the image of the ladder and the fact that I actually had a dream that I can remember parts of that dream that I had last night. And it is true that, like, are we willing to go for our dream? Like, there is a ladder because we have to elevate, and there are stages that we have to go through. And the whole core thing is about self-discipline. Like, are we going to be aligned with who God the Father is, like Matthew 6:33? And if we are, then each time we go to the next rung of that ladder, like, we're being leveled up, we're being more matured, we're being shown new things, we're being brought into greater depths and understanding and wisdom through the Bible and through the lens of who God is. And championship, like, we all want to put our flag at the top of the mountain and be like, hey, I have victory, right? But we must learn to spell the word respect, which means that if we don't respect ourselves, then how are we truly going to respect anybody else? And again, I'm going to bring in the point about my fiance. When you're a drug addict, you do not respect yourself, because you're killing your body temple. You're killing your body temple with the needles, with the pills, with the alcohol, with all the toxicity that you're putting in your system every day that you choose to continue to be a drug addict. And if you're not respecting your body temple, how are you to respect anybody else's body temple when you're not? And here I am, like, drinking my green smoothies and doing my workouts and staying in my lane of self-discipline, regardless of what his craziness was. And then I'm gaining weight, and it doesn't make any sense. Why am I gaining weight? He was drugging me. My fiance was drugging me. He was putting poison in my smoothies. He was purposefully doing things to my health to set me back. And it was driving my brain crazy, because I'm like, I know I ate these things. I know I put this in here. And meanwhile, I'm like, how is this possible? And then I'm doubting myself. I'm doubting that when I do this many workouts at the gym, and I do these, beach body dance routines or whatever, like, I should be losing weight. Why am I not losing weight? And it was because of what he was putting in. And the devil comes to what? Lie, kill, steal, and destroy. So if he's not respecting himself, there's no way he's going to respect me. And there's no way he's going to respect anybody else. So it comes back to, I thought I was respecting myself. But when you are in an environment and you are at the mercy of other people that are not respecting themselves, you're going to get caught in their web. And learning to play the game of life as well as the game of athletics according to the rules of our society. To me, health is like your top one priority. And that means you need to get out, you need to walk, you need to hike, get a vibration plate. There are certain supplements and vitamins that are going to help you on your journey. Eating clean, detoxing, red enema bags, getting out those parasites, cleaning up your act, cleaning up what you're eating. I mean, all those things are important to health, to achieve health. And it's like, I'm on that road, like I'm on the straight and narrow of respecting me, respecting my body temple, and choosing things that are going to help me get there. It doesn't mean I don't ever make a bad decision. Like the other night, I ordered pizza, okay? But it was cauliflower pizza. It was a better made pizza than a quote normal pizza, okay? So what I'm getting at is, we make choices, and there are consequences all the time to the choices that we make. But we're winning where does it say? And these are the things that will live with you as long as you live on the face of God's earth. So again, God has got to be number one. We've got to put him in that primary spot, because when we put him in that primary spot as Father, and then we receive the friendship and love of the Son through the death, burial, and resurrection, and then we receive the Holy Spirit as our guide and comforter, like, we're going to be led into the right decisions because we're listening, okay? Anchors or stepping stones. Mistakes can be anchors that drag you down, or stepping stones to greater levels of achievement. Unless you take the proper attitude towards mistakes, however, you are doomed to lose much of the pleasure from your work. No matter how successful you may appear to be on the outside, real and lasting satisfaction comes only from inside of you. The most important point of all to remember about mistakes is this: no error becomes a mistake until you refuse to correct it. O.A. Batista. So, again, powerful, great points here. It is about our attitude. And I will say, my dad had stamped on his refrigerator, the thing about, our attitude is more important than this and that. And it's a big, long paragraph. I don't remember all of it, but I remember he had that as like his focal point, that when he started his day, he had that visibly, on his refrigerator, and he would read it out loud, and he would set the tone of starting his day. So having a positive attitude and proper attitude is very important in order to live your life. And I think that it's easier when our attitude is formed by who God is. Again, I'm bringing in the Bible. Like when you understand who God is and what he deems as a proper attitude, having him in the first spot, I think that's even more important than just having a positive mental attitude. But having a positive mental attitude can be helpful. But what's inside is who we choose to live on the inside of our heart. When we choose to have God the Father, Jesus the Son, and the Holy Spirit live in our heart to guide us, comfort us, lead us into the ways of the Bible, the basic instructions before leaving earth, then I'm going to be more satisfied on the inside because I'm allowing God to live on the inside of me. And then no error becomes a mistake until you refuse to correct it. When we look at a bullseye, right, and we're trying to get to the center of that bullseye, and we're shooting our dart, we want to hit that mark, and we want to hit the very center, the bullseye of that dart thing. And we're playing the game, we're throwing our darts at it, and one's over here and one's over there, and one's close to the center, and then bam, when we hit that right on, it's like, it's a one day at a time process. So when I get up and I'm like, okay, I'm going to do my bathroom situation and I'm going to detox. I did that. Check it off. I did my red enema bag. I detoxed. I cleared all that crap that was inside of me, and it's now out of me. Okay. I had my coffee, a small portion. I took my probiotics, right? Check. So all these things are like, are there deposits that I'm making into my health. Okay. I went out and kept my word. I kept my commitment, and I met somebody at a certain time to pick up a certain thing that I was buying. So I bought my bread for Shabbat. I kept my word to somebody, and I have this beautiful bread for tonight's Shabbat. Okay. Then I was like, I'm going on the trail. I'm going to have my walk. And I went on the trail, and I can check off that I was on the trail. I did my walking, and I made some videos while on the trail. So again, it's having the quiet, private time with God. That was checked off. Reading my Bible before I left the house. When I was at the house, and then when I got on the trail, I read another portion of the Bible, a different version. So again, it's like the recommitment to all these things that I said I was going to do. All those things are putting into my health and into my spirit so that I can come out feeling good. Okay. No error becomes a mistake until you refuse to correct it. Now, if every single day I went on Amazon and I went shopping at every single store, and all I did was shop, and all I did was shop. Now, I'm going to tell you, I enjoy shopping and I'm a great shopper, but I'm saying if every single day and every single hour of every single day, all I did was shop, then how would I get my health and fitness in? Where are the check marks for that if all I'm doing is shopping? And if all I'm doing is shopping, then how am I reaching out to the widows, orphans, and poor and giving in service or charity to them if all I'm doing is shopping? Well, maybe some of that shopping then becomes that for another day. But if all I do is shop 24/7, 30 days a month, and month after month, all I do is shop, and I'm not putting in any deposits for my health. I'm not putting in any deposits for relationships with family and friends. I'm not putting any deposits in for helping the widows, orphans, and poor. I'm not putting any deposits in for increasing wisdom in my mind by reading the Bible. If all I do is shop, and that's all I do, then that's all I'm going to get. So no error becomes a mistake until you refuse to correct it. Me shopping every single day 24/7 is me choosing to make a mistake over and over again and to keep shopping over and over again because I don't want to correct it. Just like a drug addict that's in active addiction, they're going to go out and get one more. They're going to get whatever they can get with the money that they have, and then they're going to steal from somebody else, and then they're going to get that money, and then they're going to go get more drugs because they're in the mistake over and over and over again, and they're not surrendering, they're not acknowledging that they're in the mistake. Okay? But no error becomes a mistake until you refuse to correct it. It's up to you to say, you know what? God, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I've been doing this thing and I shouldn't be doing it. Please correct me. And then read about it in the Bible, what the Bible says about that particular thing, and then correct it. That means you've got to use your hands, you've got to move forward and use this body temple to get right with the Lord so that He's not looking down on you. Keep on growing. I don't know what it's like for a book writer or a doctor or a teacher as they work to get established in their jobs. But for a singer, you've got to continue to grow, or else you're just like the last night's cornbread, stale and dry. Loretta Lynn. So again, this whole idea that one day at a time, we have got to keep moving towards our goals. That ladder that we're trying to achieve, the victory, the championship that we're reaching for, that our attitude is part of the stepping stones on the rungs of the ladder to get to the victory, to get to the championship of becoming the best me that I can be. And that is a process of growing. It's a one day at a time process. And, if I want to be a better fitness person, I need to keep doing fitness. I need to keep staying up on what's going on in the fitness world. I need to stay on top with my health and my fitness. If I exclude health from fitness, then I'm losing. Like, health and fitness it needs to be looked at together. And if I'm not putting in time and adding to and making deposits to understand and grow in wisdom and understanding about health and fitness, and that's what I want to improve upon is health and fitness, then if I'm not putting the deposits in, I can't withdraw. There's nothing to withdraw from if you're not putting the deposits in. So the idea to keep growing. Adventure is where you find it, and you can find it anywhere. And I'm just going to show that picture. So true. Like, you can find adventure in anything. All right, anything is possible. If you ask a child what he wants to do when he grows up, you might get a response anywhere from driving a fire engine to landing on Mars. John Goddard set 127 goals for himself. Unlike most, these goals were not mere childhood musings. Here, S.J. Diamond describes some of the many goals Mr. Goddard has already achieved. Even at 15, John Goddard knew what he wanted to do with his life. One rainy morning in 1940, the ambitious Los Angeles teenager wrote down 127 goals on a pad of yellow paper. Some represented the simplest adolescent longings to high jump 5 feet, broad jump 15 feet, do 200 sit-ups and 20 pull-ups, and weigh a trim 175 pounds. Others were a little more demanding. He wanted to explore the Nile, fly in a blimp, light a match with a .22 rifle. He was determined to climb the Matterhorn, ride an ostrich, and read the Bible from cover to cover. So far, Goddard, 52, now a professional adventurer, lecturer, has achieved each of these goals and more, 105 in all, while traveling the equivalent of 40 times around the world. In the process, he has been chased by a warthog while photographing Rhodesia's Victoria Falls, bitten by a diamondback rattler snake while milking it for venom, and nearly buried alive in an African sandstorm. To be sure, there have been disappointments. He has not climbed Mount Everest, number 21, become a ham radio operator, number 95, or owned a cheetah, number 94. Nor has he read the entire Encyclopedia Britannica, number 109, although he has managed to plow through sizable portions of each thick volume. Goddard probably won't become a doctor, number 37, either, but he hasn't given up. I might still, he says. I don't believe in retirement. He now regards appearing in a Tarzan movie, number 93, as a silly boyhood dream. Getting to the moon, number 125, seems improbable, and Goddard will realize his final goal to see the 21st century only if he lives to be 75. For Goddard, living as long as he has seems a miracle, considering adventures like his kayak and canoe voyage down Congo River 20 years ago. It took 6 weeks to travel the first 450 miles and 127 rapids. During one watery spill, his partner Jack Yoal drowned. We had made a pact, Goddard recalls, that if one of us was killed, the other would finish. Exploring the Nile back in 1950 wasn't much easier. Goddard and 2 French companions spent 13 months navigating the great river's 4,187 miles. Goddard continues to work his way through the list. In the next few months, he expects to learn to play polo, number 122, and visit Easter Island, number 57. Life should be a series of adventures. Goddard declares in words that have the ring of another simpler era. Boredom is responsible for a great deal of our juvenile and adult delinquency. Boredom. People should reach for their potential. Adventure is where you find it, and you can find it anywhere. Wow. Very powerful. And, you know, there's a saying that I read back in the, I guess you'd say was the 80s, and it was if you think it, ink it. And when you ink it, you know, it's like your dreams become real when you write them down and you discipline yourself and you agree that you're going to do them. And then that also means like you have to like put yourself in uncomfortable situations and sometimes scary situations to meet people that are going to level you up so that you get to that next adventure, or you get to that next line on your, you know, your to-do list. Like, you have to be willing to fail. You have to be willing to be made look like a fool. You have to be willing to get up and keep going, even when your partner dies, even when you've had life circumstances that have tried to push you down, car accidents, detours, etc. But boredom is responsible for a great deal of our juvenile and adult delinquency. What a great phrase. People should reach for their potential, and adventure is where you find it, and you can find it anywhere. So that should be encouragement to all of us that, adventure is everywhere. The fun shouldn't stop. Here, actor Telly Savalas tells how his mother's opinions have shaped his attitudes towards success. Telly is having fun now and doesn't plan to stop even if his success dies down. Get on with it, Telly, his mother says. Stop taking the bows and listening to the applause. Get off that merry-go-round and get on to something more important. Well, if you get caught up in success and I'm having fun with it, living every day to the fullest. But that great lady also gave me the awareness that one day the applause will stop. And you can rest assured that I'm prepared for that as well. And when all dies down and I'm no longer a sex symbol, if that's what I am, when they've got some new stiff up there, then Telly's going to have to be having fun in another area. My dad was a man of loving fun, and he always said, have fun, have fun. That was his motto. There's pros and cons to that, because if you're always having fun and you're not dealing with the details of life that are necessary, mundane things that need to get done, but you're so concentrated on having fun, then those mundane things aren't going to get done, and then you're going to have leaks in your home, and you're going to have bills that are unpaid because you're so worried about having fun that you're not handling the basic routine things that need to be handled. So there is a balance to that. From the point of having this attention and, being perceived as someone who is a great actor, and then all of a sudden you don't get that attention anymore. I can tell you, being a yoga teacher, there was a lot of attention that I got. There was a lot of invitations and VIP status that I held as this, great yoga teacher. And, when I put that as on the altar as my Isaac moment, and I said, no, I'm no longer doing yoga anymore. I'm not doing that anymore. I'll do fitness, but I'm not doing yoga. Many people were annoyed with me. They were angry with me. They were pissed at me. And, I had to honor God, and I had to do what was necessary for me to stay in honor with God. And, yoga has a whole thing with it, with, this whole sexy thing and the tight, yoga pants and the crop tops and all that. And I was caught up in all that. I didn't think that I really was trying to quote, put myself out there. That was just the industry. And it was the fitness industry. But, you can be covered up and, teach well and not be calling to every body part of yourself to be exposed every time you walk out to go to the grocery store. And yes, my body has been my calling card, and definitely it opened up many doors for me to, get attention from people, from women and from men. And then I have to be having fun in another area of my life as the times change. And for me, reading the Bible is fun. For me, going on a hike is fun. And that is way more fun than, leading people down a road that they don't even understand. Hoping that they did, but they didn't. A special privilege. Rudyard Kipling is well known for his wise words of advice to mankind. Here, Arthur Gordon relates some of that advice from a conversation he had with Kipling. The individual has always had to struggle to keep from being overwhelmed by the tribe. To be your own man is a hard business. If you try it, you'll be lonely often and sometimes frightened, but no price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. So, yes, there is this balance again. To be your own man is a hard business, and that is truly true. Sometimes you are lonely, and lonely not in a bad way, but choosing to want to be alone because you want to be alone. No price is too high to pay for the privilege of owning yourself. But when you really know who you are, and you know what you'll tolerate and what you won't, and what boundaries are just not removable at all, you're not going to change your ways, and your value system is high, and you choose valor of, being a woman with valor, a biblical, godly woman of valor over the worldly woman of like, let it all hang out. Yeah, you may have a different life, and your life may be more comfortable sitting in a van in a parking lot reading a book than sitting in a bar wearing a Halloween costume, pretending to be sexy kitten, I'm happy with who I'm choosing to be, and I know that I'm good in God's eyes, and that's what's important. Looking ahead, life becomes worth living only to the man who has learned, as he surveys the work of the day just past, to look forward with enthusiasm to the next day's tasks. It is the entire pattern that makes life worth living. No part of living can stand for the whole. No moment of living can take the place of the long surge and sweep of living through the years. Walter Pitkin. And yeah, I agree with that, it's a one day at a time process. Life is a one day at a time process. And there are days when my body is sore from doing other workouts and I need more rest. And that's that day. I need more rest. I need more physical rest. And there are other days when I'm in the kitchen and I am very productive and I make a lot of food and I'm prepared not just for that day, but for many days in advance because I've done the food prep. And other days, like today with the beautiful temperature and, walking on the trail, like I just want to be in nature. And I want to get God's portion to me that day, being in nature, and then I want to share that with other people, however He asks me to do it. And sometimes it's unusual. Like right now, I'm reading a book that I've never read before. I've never had any insight on. I just bought it at a thrift shop, and I'm reading it to you and having insight and commentary in the moment. Okay, the best way. Nature provides so many relaxing pleasures if we but care to take the time to see them. When the pressures and demands on my time are keeping me away from my wife and children, in my schedule will appear such items as June 1-8, Canada, Vera and Janie, and August 6-13, canoe trip, Mike. Any busy man who doesn't give his family the same billing as a business trip is not giving himself or his family a break. Out of my boyhood struggles and hardships have come a solid sense of values and an appreciation about what is worthwhile in life. I have tried in the best way to know how to communicate my faith and philosophy to my boys, to show them that there are no shortcuts, no free rides, and that the hard way is the best way. Clarence Biggie Munn. So yeah, I'm going to jump on the first point he made about nature and when we take the time to see nature. And for me, that has been a huge part of my life, and how I curate my life is around nature. And that has been, as a child, I was always drawn to the woods, to go to the streams, to, go to the beach, to go to the mountains. Like that was something that as a child I really appreciated when we went, and I always wanted to make it a part of my life as I became an adult, and I did. So it started when I became 18 and I had my own truck, and it was like a Chevy Blazer, and I would take myself and my dog and a camping bag and a lantern, and I would just go to some place that had hiking trails, and I would find a spot and I would camp overnight, usually on a parking lot. And this was way before all the different rules and regulations, because things are different now. But the point is, I went in nature and I went camping, and it was me, my dog, and a lantern and a campsite that we just made, or found. And in those days of walking those trails with my dog, experiencing the trails with my dog, there was this sense of like, God is present. I have a physical companion with me, the dog. I was able to go to different places that I would have been scared to go, because as a young teenager, as a woman, I was apprehensive, but that dog gave me that extra security at that time. And I felt fearless because I had a Doberman, and that Doberman, man, she was for me. And when she sensed somebody was off, there was no way anybody was getting close to me. She was very protective. So what I'm getting at is, when I have put on my calendar the necessity, when I was busy, like having a corporate job, I would highlight trips on my calendar, and I would be like, this weekend I'm going away, I'm going to go to the beach. This weekend I'm going away, I'm going to the woods. This weekend I'm going away, I'm going to do like thrift shopping. This weekend I'm going away and I'm doing art museums. So I put it on my calendar as a teenager, as an adult, and that has been part of my life path and part of my life journey, and what I put as value and important to me. And just this past week, like, I had really been feeling like I need to go on another trip. And sometimes with all the daily things that I'm doing with my businesses and trying to sell things, and they're physically at one location right now, and I'm trying to liquidate those things. So part of my van life trips are dictated upon how much I'm selling through my business. So sometimes I need to be close to my home base so that I'm selling those things, but then I need to, again, get off of that grinding wheel, the hamster wheel, and be like, hey, I need to get away. I need to get back to nature. I need to take a longer trip than just a walk in the woods on my normal trail. I need to take, get in the van and drive a further distance. And so I went to Assateague, the campsite. I had a campsite and met up with other women in the butterfly tribe, and it was amazing. It was beautiful. And it was just something that was needed. It just resets your soul to have that quiet time with God, to be on the beach, to get that extra exercise in. It is just so easy for me to do a lot of walking when you're on the beach. That just makes it easy for me. It's like timeless to me. And I'm like, wow, I walked like 6 miles today. Wow, go figure, So it's easier when you're on a trail or when you're on a beach for me. So including nature in that. And, just knowing that my values are that I need to curate and cultivate that in my calendar so that I have it. And so when I'm feeling off, generally it's because I'm not getting enough nature in my daily life. And so I need to schedule that, and I need to allow myself to do it like I did today, to get out and about. And that there are no shortcuts, there's no free rides, and that the hard way is the best way. And that, is sometimes counterintuitive because, in today's life, even with the iPhones and, the AI and this and that, it's like, this is a faster way to do it, this is an easy way to do it. Like, download our app and, you can have perfect makeup put in with an AI version of yourself. No, thank you. Like, I'm me, and I'm coming to you as me, authentic, real, and I don't need to take a shortcut. I don't need makeup to make myself feel better. I'm me. And if you don't like me, then don't listen and don't watch. And I don't care. That's totally fine. I want to draw to me people that are also being authentically themselves. I don't need filters and, makeup in order to feel okay. Like, I'm okay with me as I am. Determination. With determination, says Dave Bender, you can conquer the world. And in a way, he has done just that. He started out with only $40 in his pocket and is now the owner of a prosperous factory. Here, Mr. Bender talks about his work and how determination still plays a large role in his life. I like making things. I make the machinery here. I'm not an engineer, but I have an idea and I kind of develop things, and with an air of wonder, they work. All night long, I think about this place. I love my work. It isn't the money. It's just a way of expressing my feeling. I'm making a machine now. I do hope to have it ready in the next couple months. The machine has nothing to do with helping humanity in any size, shape, or form. It's a personal satisfaction for me to see this piece of iron doing some work. It's like a robot working. This is the reward itself for me, nothing else. My ego, that's it. Something last night was bugging me. I took a sleeping pill to get it out of my mind. I was up half the night just bugging and bugging and bugging. I was down here about 6 o'clock in the morning and I said, stop everything. We're making a mistake. I pointed out where the mistake was and they said, we never thought of that. Today we're rebuilding the whole thing. This kind of stuff gets me. Not only was I wrong, but how the devil do you fix it? I felt better. This problem that's over with. There's no problem that can't be solved if you use logic and reason the thing out. I don't care what it is. Good horse sense is what is known as. With that, you can do anything you want. Determination, you can conquer the world. And I have to tell you, this whole portion on determination, again, it makes me think of my dad. He may not have always followed through on what he said, but he did have the sense to pass on to his children and to me that determination is more important than knowledge. And he would tell me that all the time. Good old dad. Determination is more important than knowledge. Get it done. If you can get it done 80%, just do it. You can fine tune and tweak the next 20%, but get the 80% done. And again, I'm going to say this van is an example of all of that at the different stages that it has gone through. Sadly, some of the things that my dad and I did ourselves are now not in the van because of a prior flood that I had, and then having to take out all that wood that was affected by the things that my dad and I had created. But the lessons and the memories of me and dad working side by side in the van are things that no one can take away from me, even if they aren't physically present in my current van layout right now. I have those memories, and I have those memories where there were times when I had a vision of what I wanted, and I was trying to express that to my dad of what I wanted. And he would say, no, look, just do this, get that, hold this here, let me get this first screw in, and then we'll talk about that other thing. And there were times when I was highly disappointed and very frustrated because I felt like dad's not listening, right? But once I got those couple screws in and that thing was stable, and then we looked at it, and then he backed away from it and he went and had a cigarette, because that was part of my dad's routine of, quote, calming him down. He would come back and he'd be like, Ann, you were right. That's crooked and we need to change it. Now, I was saying that while we were in the midst of it, but he didn't want to hear his daughter tell the father what to do. But that is sometimes when the student becomes the teacher. And at that point, I was going, Dad, I understand the basics of what you're saying. And at this point right now, like, we're doing it wrong. But sometimes you need to make the mistake for the person who's leading the project to step away, come back with fresh eyes, and then be like, oh, wow, okay, yeah, you were right. And for a man to say a woman is right, my dad being a little bit of a narcissist and a little bit of a hypocrite when it came to men and women, he was like, Ann, I give you the kudos. You were right on this. Let's fix this. Let's get this right now. And so the point is, I earned my dad's respect. And sometimes it's hard to hold your tongue. It's hard to not say the things you want to say and to just stay in that silence, knowing that the person is wrong, but then there's no problem that can't be solved if you use logic and reason the thing out. I don't care what it is. Good horse sense is what is known as. And with that, you can do anything you want. Determination, you can conquer the world. And my dad taught me a very simple task, and it's the Ben Franklin method. You take a piece of paper, and on one side of the paper, you write down all the positive, and on the other side of the paper, you write down all the negative. And then with logic, with reason, you see how they balance out, and you see how, okay, well, if I do this and this happens, and if I do that, then that happens. And then finally you come to a decision. You have to use your mind. You have to use your head, and you have to come to a place of, okay, this is what I'm choosing. This is what I'm deciding. This is what I'm going to do based on all of these variables, all the positive and all the negative. And that is how my dad taught me how to make decisions. It doesn't mean that I don't ever fail in making bad decisions. I make bad decisions sometimes, but that whole idea of like, just do the 80%, just go in there and do that 80%. And when you're doing that 80%, you're going to fine tune that last 20%, and you're going to figure out what you need to do to resolve the next level of changes that need to be made. But get that 80% in. Okay. So I am going to stop after this portion, and then I'll pick it up again. We're at 1:20 right now, an hour and 20. And I'm going to finish on this portion. The skyline is a promise. If you have traveled but once, you have certainly felt the inexplicable emotion that hits you when the skyline of a city sweeps suddenly before your eyes. As you reach the crest of the hill or round the steep curve, there lies filling the horizon. The striking pinnacles of stone and steel piercing the sky, the dramatic rise and fall of towers to tenements, the mighty steps, some in giant leaps, that climb upward towards dizzying heights, then drop suddenly into deep crevices. Here is beauty, here is power, here is majesty. Here also is a promise of rich reward to those who, as John Massafield said, go forth to seek. Look closely, and you can see the skyline paint upon a brilliant blue canvas vivid pictures of those who dwell within the city, of their high success and low failure, the complacency of the many and the ambition of the few, of the wonderful opportunities offered to all, but given only to those who try. Then remember, as you cross the horizon and enter the city, the decision is yours. You can remain in the shadows of the towering structures, or you can strive to gain the heights. It is really up to you, for certainly the skyline is a promise, not a bound. Guilford Dudley Jr. And I think back to this weekend, and again, tying on the idea that, you know, for me, a high value for me is nature and getting to the beach, getting to the woods. And so in Assateague, I was at the beach. And when you're at a beautiful campsite and you've got just quiet and solitude and the things that make you feel filled up again, filled up with God, filled up with His Word, filled up with the beauty and the masterpieces of nature, of the skyline, of the clouds in the sky over the ocean, of the sunrise when you walk on the beach and you see, you know, the light just sparkling on the horizon, and it just grows, you know. When you go for a sunset and you see the sun going down, I mean, those things are magical things that are in nature that God created. And to me, it's showing God's brilliance and His magnificence of what He has created for us to enjoy. And to me, like, you can't put a price tag on those things. Those memories are emblazoned in my mind. Those memories and the people that I've held those memories with, family and friends, are emblazoned in my heart. But this point about the skyline as a promise, like, in the world, we want to achieve success. We want to, you know, reach high mountains. We want to conquer the things of our wisdom and our intellect. We want to, you know, put our mark and put our flag at the top of the mountain and be like, hey, I did that. I created that. And that is human nature. We want to do these things. And the towering structures, the shadows, you can remain in the shadows of the towering structures, or you can strive to gain the heights. Like, we have a choice every day how we want to live and what we're willing to do to achieve that level of, quote, success. And success can be determined and lived differently by different people. Like, you can have, you know, an address in Santa Monica, and you can have a beautiful skyline over, you know, the Pacific Ocean, where you are paying, you know, thousands of dollars a month to own that property so that you have that view. And it is an insane view, and you've had to do certain things in order to acquire that lifestyle, to see that horizon and to see the sunrise and the sunset in that location. And that is true, that you can either be sitting in the shadows of somebody else's, towers and their, McMansions that they've created. You can choose to gain that same type of success in life, or you can choose not to. And it says it's really up to you, for certainly the skyline is a promise, not a bound. And so I'm going to touch on this last line, which is, I can continue to see the skylines in my van. I can continue to know God's promises by reading his word. And I can continue to be nomadic and travel from here to there and see beautiful things that God has created for me to see by visiting the national parks, by visiting places that I didn't even think I didn't even know they existed, but then I get to witness it. I get to experience it, but I'm not bound to it. I'm not bound to it because I have to pay so many dollars in order to achieve this place to sit here. Like, I can experience it in the moment. I can experience it on the trail. I can experience a sunrise. I can experience a museum and somebody's beautiful artwork. I can experience someone's beautiful words by reading this book. So it really comes down to, like, how much are we willing to give for what we have to give in order to get? So there is a balance of our time and our energy and everything else. And yes, we can strive for certain things, but I'd rather strive for God's promises, and having a personal relationship with God than striving for physical, worldly things that are temporary, that I don't even want to be bound to begin with. So it is a choice. So I finished on page 28 of this book, and I will come back in a different video to finish up reading. So this was a different way to experience you, listening to some book, and just be with one another as we share our insights about life. Have a great one.